Imagine swimming peacefully through the ocean. You see nothing unusual, just sand. But underneath that sand, there could be nearly 10-foot long predators just waiting for you. And here's the terrifying part. You might not even see it until it's already attacking. This is the Bobbit Worm, and it may be one of the most ridiculous looking animals on Earth that you absolutely do not want to underestimate, because this thing doesn't even chase its prey. It doesn't need to. It just waits and lets dinner come right to it. The Bobbit Worm's scientific name is Eunice aphroditois. It's a giant marine bristleworm, and it lives in warm ocean environments, including parts of the Atlantic and Indian Pacific Oceans. And when I say giant, I'm not talking about a worm that's a little bigger than your average backyard earthworm. We're talking about an animal that can reach around 3 meters long. That's about 10 feet. So imagine a worm long enough to stretch across an entire room, hiding underneath the ocean floors. Yeah, the ocean apparently decided we need more underground monsters. But here's where things get crazy. The Bobbitworm doesn't normally sit out in the open. It buries almost its entire body in soft sediment, sand, mud, or material around reefs. Then it just hangs out and waits. And while most of its body is hidden, the worm keeps its head positioned near the surface. It has 5 sensory antennae around its head. Think of them like tiny biological tripwire. Something moves nearby, the worm knows it's lunch. And the worm isn't sitting around thinking, wondering whether it should order pizza or not. All it does is sit and wait for the perfect opportunity for the right fish to come along. Here's the nightmare scenario. You're a fish, you're swimming along, completely unaware that there's a monster underneath you. You pass over the sand. One of these sensory structures detects movement, and suddenly, bam! The Bobbitworm launches upwards. Its jaws snap onto the prey, and the worm pulls the victim back towards its burrow. Scientists describe this worm as an ambush predator because that's exactly what they're doing. They're not winning a marathon. They're winning hide and seek, and they're very good at it. Some reports describe their powerful jaws as capable of severely injuring their prey, and prey can sometimes be cut or stunned during the strike. Basically, if you're the fish, you just lost the world's worst game of peekaboo. And here's another reason this animal is so fascinating. The Bobbitworm doesn't need to expose its entire body to hunt. That's important because its body becomes enormous, but most of its body stays underground. Think about that for a second. You could be looking at what appears to be a tiny little creature sticking out of the sand, while underneath it, there's potentially feet and feet of worm hidden below. It's basically the ocean's version of seeing the tip of an iceberg and discovering the rest of it has teeth. And scientists have even found evidence that these worms have been using this basic ambush lifestyle for an incredibly long time. Sometimes, Bobbitworms end up in aquariums, not because somebody thought, hey, I'd like a giant nightmare worm. Usually they accidentally are stowaways. A much smaller worm can hide inside live rocks and other material that gets introduced into aquarium. Imagine buying some aquarium rocks, putting it into your tank, and unknowingly bringing home a tiny version of this creature. Months later, your fish start disappearing. And you're standing there like, okay, who's eating my fish? Meanwhile, the worm is underground having a nice meal with no complaints. And this is why the Bobbitworm deserves its reputation. It's not just big, it's not just creepy, it's not just hiding underground. It's an incredibly specialized predator, and it combines sensory antennas, patience, and powerful jaws, makes this one of the most extremely effective hunters in the ocean. The worm itself can be surprisingly difficult to observe because we usually only see the tiny portions sticking out of the sediment. So when you see one in a video, remember, you're probably not looking at the whole body. And that's what makes the Bobbitworm so incredible. It doesn't need speed like a cheetah. It doesn't need electricity like an eel. It doesn't need venom like a snake. Its superpower is patience. It turns the ocean floor into a trap, and it waits for the right moment. And millions of years later, this strategy keeps working. So here's the question for you guys. If you were swimming across the ocean floor and you knew there was a 10-foot Bobbitworm that could be hiding underneath you, would you keep swimming? Or would you get out of the water immediately? Tell me what you would do in the comments. And don't just say, I'm getting out. I want to know for real. How fast are you getting out? If this video made you look at the ocean floor just a little bit differently, hit that like, subscribe, and follow. Because there's animals out there with abilities that sound completely made up, but they're real. And if you think that the Bobbitworm was crazy, trust me, we're just getting started. Stick around for more animals with weird superpowers.